Sup, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute. It's been a week, to be honest. Look, I got a fucking community guidelines strike because the soy cunts at YouTube couldn't handle me posting some random fucking thing that wasn't even that bad. But anyway, so I couldn't upload for a week, which was unfortunate. But we're back now. We've got some videos. I stockpiled some videos. I've recorded some videos in my time off. So, you should be having some... I'll be going daily uploads for the rest of this week, hopefully. But in today's video, it's mid-year UFC. We've crossed the halfway mark of the UFC year in 2024. I was going to do this video a couple days ago, obviously, and it would have been more timely, like exactly on that midpoint, but whatever. I'll do it now. The mid-year awards. We're giving out the KO of the half-year, submission, debut, fight of the year, event of the year, so all that shit, but just for halfway through the year. You guys know what's up. Let's get into the video. So starting off with the KO of the year now, just for reference, each of these categories, I'll have 5 nominations, and then I'll give the winner on the next slide. I whipped this one up with Google Slides, great quality here on the channel. That's why you guys subscribe. But KO of the year nominations, obviously Max Holloway's KO over Gaethje. Yeah, I don't know what I'm fucking around. That's fucking winning. That's one already. But the other nominations, Ribovic KOing Terrence McKinney with a head kick. That Kevin Lee reference with the Gillespie head kick looked very similar to that one. Vinicius Oliveira with the flying knee KO over Bernardo Sopai. Ilia Toporia's CGI KO over Volkanovski. It didn't happen, but it deserves a nomination. And then Pereira's KO over Yuri Prohaska. A couple honorable mentions too, like Dan Igue's KO was pretty sick. There's been some sick KOs. Carlos Prates against both Radke with the knee. It wasn't really a KO, it was a knee to the body. But the KO against Trevin Giles too, that was sick. I'm forgetting a bunch. There's been a heap of KOs. Lopez against Sadiq Youssef, more of a TKO. Pereira against Jamal Hill as well. Look, there's a bunch of nominations. I could put 20 up on the screen, but we all know what's the winner. It's Holloway against Gaethje, of course. It's like the most impactful KO. It's the most crazy to watch. Like, obviously, if that was just done by some random dude on the prelims of an Apex card, yeah, it's probably still getting a nomination, but it probably wouldn't have quite as much, like, impact. And maybe you'd then be like, okay, but yeah, this flying knee KO or this head kick KO probably beats it. But look, I want to remain like unbiased in terms of like the fighters who's involved, and just look at the actual KO itself and what was the most impressive KO, which then would probably be like the head kick or the flying knee. But just, we all know this is the KO of the year. It's going to be KO of the year. It's going to be KO of the half year as well. There's really not much debate to this. Let's move on, though, to the next category. Next up, submission of the year. There's been a bunch of submissions this year. A lot of them haven't been that crazy. We've seen a lot of standard take the back, rear naked choke, all that kind of stuff. But in the submission of the year category, I'm looking at what's the most impressive submission to pull off, what's like the coolest in terms of like visually how it looks, how difficult it is, all that stuff. So yeah, there is like a rear naked choke on here. There's a couple guillotines. There's a guillotine. But yeah, I'm looking at like a combination of high level, that's going to be a factor, difficulty to pull off, just how cool it looks as well. So yeah, nominations. Yair Rodriguez getting subbed by Brian Ortega. I don't know why I said Yair first. Brian Ortega submitting Yair Rodriguez with a head and arm choke. Dustin Poirier getting... Why do I keep saying the loser first? Islam Makhachev submitting Dustin Poirier with the Darstrick in the 5th round. Ihor Peteira... Why do I keep saying... I'm not doing this on purpose. Michel Pereira subbing Ihor Peteira with a guillotine after fucking backflip KOing him. Then also Michel Pereira submitting Mikhail Olajaychuk when he hurt him to the body and then like did some fucking ninja shit and took his back somehow and then got a choke without any hooks in. And then the last one is Kevin Holland submitting Mikhail Olajaychuk as well. Sucks for Mikhail, bro. He's gone 0-2 this year, getting subbed twice. That's rough for him. But in my opinion, the winner of the submission of the year, it was close. There were some cool submissions, like Michel Pereira choking out Ihor, and then his head just bounced, he tapped, and then he still went out. Like, that's pretty cool. But in a combination of difficulty to pull off and the sequence as well, it's got to be Islam Makhachev subbing Dustin Poirier. That whole sequence with the takedown, the foot sweep, all the way to the DAS. He went into the guillotine first, and we thought he was going to guillotine Poirier, and it was going to be like, what the fuck? But no, he DAS'd him, put him out. He tapped and napped as well. So crazy submission from Islam Makhachev. Definitely the submission of the first 6 months, I would say. If you guys think, look, a Darce choke, is it the most difficult to pull off? No, it's difficult. It's not like a rear naked. It's not like he rear naked choked Poirier. If he rear naked choked Poirier at the end of the 5th, probably wouldn't have won. I probably would have gone with Michel Pereira, the guillotine, or maybe Kevin Holland. But even that gets some points taken off because it was a bit questionable with the stoppage. But yeah, I say Islam Makhachev wins pretty easily. Let's move on though to the next category. The next category is the debut of the year. There's been a bunch of debuts this year. A bunch of fighters have made their entrance into the UFC and made a stamp. But I've picked 5 here that I think are the best debuts of the year. Now, I've excluded MVP against Holland, and I've excluded Kayla Harrison against Holly Holm. And the reason is because they're already, major players. We already know who they are. If we go get, fucking Patchy Mix or something at his debut, and he wins, is that debut of the year? Not really, because he's already a notable fighter. We're looking at guys who were, coming off the regional scene, coming off Contender Series, these kind of guys. So, my nominations: Carlos Prates. Now, also, this could be overall debutant of the year, in terms of the person who didn't fight in the UFC last year but did this year, and then you're looking at their whole year, or it could just be the first performance. I'm doing just their first performance, their first fight in the UFC. So my nominations: Carlos Prates KOing Trevin Giles, stiff, KO'd him. Bernardo, why do I keep saying the fucking loser? Vinicius Oliveira KOing Bernardo Sopai. Mauricio Ruffi TKOing and schooling Jamie Mullarkey, beating him up, using him as a punching bag for all of round 1, and then finishing him. Zhang Mingyang KOing Benson Haberio with a vicious left hook, and then also Danny Barlow KOing or beating up Josh Quinlan and then KOing him in the 3rd. A bunch of cool debuts. Look, Gene Silva, another good nomination. His KO over Weston Wilson. It's Weston Wilson, though. It was a standing TKO. Look, if you're going at, newest fighter, new entry fighter, and the best year that they've had, Gene Silva's got an argument because he just KO'd Charles Jourdain. But I'm looking at just their first fight in the UFC. Carlos Prates also has had a great year, 2 KOs with the knee over against Radke as well. But I'd say the winner, in my opinion, is Mauricio Ruffi. Look, this guy was you're crazy when you're pulling up, when you're getting Conor McGregor comparisons in your debut. This dude hit a fucking scissor sweep on Jamie Mullarkey. This guy was just playing creative mode, just spamming, just button mashing, spamming combinations, landing whatever he wanted. I don't think Jamie Mullarkey actually landed a clean shot on this dude. Mauricio Ruffi's accuracy in this fight as well was crazy. He just looked so composed. And the other debuts, they're cool. Carlos Prates, he was losing the fight a little bit. Zhang Mingyang getting touched up a little bit. Some of Vinicius Oliveira had a big, had to come back a little bit, got beaten up a bit in the 2nd round. But Mauricio Ruffi had none of that. There was no fighting against adversity. This was just 4.5 minutes of him beating the fuck out of someone and using them as a punching bag, and then getting a pretty highlight reel finish. Flying knees, counter right hands, counter left hands, all this shit. He was bringing it all out. So yeah, Mauricio Ruffi, debut of the year in my opinion. Also, I didn't include Rebellis de Spain because he KO'd a fat fuck and then he went on to have an absolute embarrassment in his next fight. So even though I am only judging off the first fight, I'm not giving that man credit. And also Josh Parisian isn't good, so I don't care. But let's move on to the next category, and it is the fraud check of the year. Now, you can see top left, we've got Rebellis himself getting beaten up by Waldo Cortez Acosta. That is a nomination. Also, Neil Magny beating Mike Malott. After Malott kind of beat him up for 2 rounds, somehow gassed out, got finished. Another nomination, Anthony Smith showed up on paper and he subbed Vitor Petrino, who was undefeated at the time. Shamil Gassiev, we should call him, losing to Rosenstrike, definitely a fraud check there. And then also Diego Ferreira beating Matej Rebecki. He did beat him up. He got dropped in the first round, but then he pretty much beat him up, had him looking like a fucking mess, had him looking like an absolute lump with no fucking facial structure after that fight. But the winner is clearly Rebellis de Spain getting fraud checked by Waldo Cortez Acosta. And yeah, it's just because of that. It's because Waldo Cortez Acosta. Neil Magny, been around, fought the best. He's been ranked for ages. Smith, similar, been ranked for ages. Rosenstrike, top 10 heavyweight or top 15 heavyweight. nasty power, pretty decent striker. Carlos Diego Ferreira, been around, been ranked, fought Mateusz Gamrot, fought these guys. But Rebelis de Spain lost to Waldo Cortez Acosta. Now, Waldo Cortez Acosta is awful. And he lost to Waldo Cortez Acosta, who before this fight had never completed a takedown in the UFC. Never completed a takedown. And he took him down, I think, a total of like four... No, he took him down 3 times. You want to know why? You would have thought, oh, he got a wrestling masterclass, got taken down 20 times. No, he got taken down 3 times because he couldn't get back up when he got taken down. And no, I don't think Rebelis got back up once. I think there were 3 takedowns, and then there was about 4.5 minutes of control time from each of them. So embarrassing stuff from Rebelis de Spain. Let's move on, though, to the next fight, or the next category, sorry. Next up, we've got the I'm Still Here award. Now, this is for maybe the veterans, the older fighters, or just even the fighters that were being doubted going into their fights, going into their matchups. There was a bit of concern around maybe their age, maybe this guy that they're fighting is too good, they're like young, hungry, they're going to lose. And yeah, so all of these fights, you'll notice that the winner or the nomination is much older than their opponent, and they all obviously won that fight. We've got Dustin Poirier beating BSD. BSD, I think, he's like 27. Poirier's like 33, 34 maybe. 35, actually. Never mind. We've got Jose Aldo, came in at fucking 37 years old, beat Jonathan Martinez, who's a pretty young guy. Dominic Reyes is older, I think. That's one that doesn't have quite the same age difference. But Reyes was definitely being doubted going into this fight. I doubted him. I picked against him. And if you know, you know. It cost me. But also, Diego Ferreira, previously mentioned, beating Mateusz Rebecki. I think he was like 39. Rebecki's like 26, 27 or something like that. Maybe he's older. But still, major age difference there. And then Peter Yan beating Song Yadong. This was just because, like, you know, Peter Yan was on that loss streak. People were doubting him. I picked against him. I thought Song Yadong would edge out a decision. But the winner is pretty clearly Dominic Reyes, in my opinion, because the essence of this category is like you were being doubted, your position, your skills were being doubted, if you were still capable of doing it was being doubted. And with all these other guys, it's not like we were genuinely like thinking they should retire. Like, no one was talking about like Peter Yan like he's Tony Ferguson. That was not the conversations being had. But it was more like people were just doubting whether they would be able to deal with this young, hungry, up-and-coming contender. But with Reyes, it was like Jacoby's not some young contender. He's just like, we're like, okay, Reyes, you've got no chin, you're gonna lose, you're gonna get KO'd, retire, please. And he won, and he KO'd him in the first round. So yeah, Dominic Reyes clearly wins this award, in my opinion. Great job to Dominic Reyes. Let's move on, though, to the next category. Next up, we've got the worst year nominations, because I'll talk about the fighter of the year in a bit. But now we're going to look at who's had the worst year, who's just had an absolute stinker, who's losing their fights, who's just having a rough go of things. So, Johnny Walker, first nomination, got KO'd twice. Once in the second round by Ankalaev, got his nose broken, and then pretty much the same thing against Ozdemir, got dropped and then got flattened with the follow-up shot. Next up is Khamzat Chimaev. Hasn't lost a fight, but he's losing fans, he's losing credibility. This dude just fucking hit a pump and dump and scammed all his fans, turned into Logan Paul. Ricky Simone's another one, but Khamzat, also Jamal Hill and Costa, I'll talk about them in a sec. But Khamzat Chimaev, look, he's not the winner of the category because he hasn't actually lost a fight. But, you know, he's got sick again, he's getting clowned, his immune system is fucking about as reliable as Joe Biden as president. Like, it's just not reliable. We've got Khamzat Chimaev here. But what the fuck's he doing? He's hitting the crypto scams. Like, why is this dude turning into a fucking influencer? He's turning into a fucking YouTuber, just scamming his fans for crypto or some shit. Shit went to zero. Like, crazy. But yeah, tough run for Khamzat Chimaev. You know, pulled out of the fight against Whitaker. Big opportunity there. Lost that. Got clowned a bit. But now, yeah. People are just not liking Khamzat anymore. They're falling off. He's losing the aura. He's losing the hype. People used to talk about this dude as a fucking double champ, triple champ. Now they're talking about him as, like, maybe we can see him get well enough to step in the cage and maybe beat Brendan Allen. Like, that's who we're looking at with Khamzat Chimaev right now. But Ricky Simone also 2 losses. both dominant decision losses to Batista and Oliveira. Jamal Hill, the KO loss to Alex Pereira, but most of the reason also got injured, pulled out of the fight with Khalil Roundtree. Oh no, Khalil pulled out. He pulled out the fight with Olberg. Got injured. He's just been getting clowned. He's been looking like an absolute fool on Twitter. Been yapping constantly. And not looking the best coming out of that situation. And then also the last nomination, Paulo Costa, 2 pretty clear decision losses. He's not had a bad year, but, 2 losses. It's not ideal. Pretty firmly put him out of title talks. A couple other nominations, obviously Mikhail Lelekjachik had a pretty bad year. John Jones, in terms of, hasn't lost, but he's just getting clowned more and more. It's looking like Dana White also, good nomination for the worst year. This dude, every fucking press conference, says something retarded. But the winner is Johnny Walker, because, look, as much as like Jamal Hill and Hamzat, they're losing fans, they're getting clowned, all of this. Johnny Walker's just been flatline KO'd twice. Like, he's way out of title talks now, no chance he's getting back there. He started the year, coming off the no contest with Ankalaev. People was thinking, like, I fucking picked him against Ankalaev. I thought he would fluke it and land some big shot. But Ankalaev KO'd him, and then Ozdemir just fucking pieced him up and KO'd him. He's setting him moving up to heavyweight now. But yeah, this category is for like who's had the worst year in the cage, let's be honest. Even though Hamzat's had a bad year outside the cage, Jamal Hill has had a bad year on Twitter, Dana White's had a bad year at press conferences. The worst year in the cage is pretty clearly Johnny Walker. Let's move on, though, to the next category. Next up, we've got the fighter of the year. This is who has had the best year in the cage, who is showing out and putting on dominant performances, who's getting wins, who's rising their stock with the fans. Obviously, Alex Pereira, he's the number 1 nomination with a bullet. Like, let's be honest, 2 KOs in the first, no, 1 in the first, 1 in the second, 2 title defenses, saving cards, more of a fan favourite than ever. Michel Pereira, another good nomination. 2 first-round finishes inside a minute. Crazy stuff. Robert Whittaker, another nomination. Beat Paulo Costa and then just KO'd Ikram. He's having a great year. As opposed to last year when he lost to Dricus, he's turned around in 2024. He's looking good. Diego Lopez, another nomination. KO'd Sadiq Youssef and then had this whole situation with Dan Ige. Would have been better if he finished him, but still 2 wins and rising up the rankings. And then also Max Holloway, only 1 win. But there's other fighters that have had 2 wins. Oliveira, obviously Vinicius Oliveira, I'm talking about Carlos Prates. These guys, Gene Silva, these guys have all had multiple wins. But Ian Gary as well had 2 wins. But let's be honest, Max Holloway has had a crazy good year. Maximus Holloway with the KO over Gaethje, rising his stock more than ever. And he's a fan favourite and people want to see him fight to Poirier now. Let's move on though to the winner. Sorry, the winner's Pereira, yeah. Winner's Alex Pereira, pretty clearly. 2 KOs in title fights, biggest wins out of anyone on this list. All the other champions have defended once or won the belt or any of this. But yeah, it's pretty clearly Alex Pereira for the winner. Let's move on though to the next category. Next up, we've got the fight of the year category. I'm saying all of these like of the year, obviously it's of the half year. But fight of the year so far, with the nominations, Dricus du Plessis, Sean Strickland. Great fight, banger, classic. Gonna go rewatch that a bunch of times. Yuri Prohaska against Alexander Rakic. Crazy comeback from Yuri. Dramatic finish, all of that. Was getting pieced up and then came back to win. Another fight of the year nomination. Islam Makhachev against Poirier. Was a crazy fight, ended in a crazy finish. Brandon Allen against Chris Curtis was a great scrap, back and forth. Both of them close to finishing the other. And then the last nomination is Holloway against Gaethje. Not the craziest fight for a lot of it, like the spinning back kick in round 1. Gaethje dropped him in round 4. Holloway was beating him up a bit in round 5, almost hadn't finished. But then the KO at the end made that special. But in terms of just the pure fight, back and forth action, craziness to watch, I'm going with Islam Makhachev against Dustin Poirier, in my opinion. I think that was the most back and forth competitive fight. Actually, the most competitive fight was Dricus and Strickland, but that wasn't like... Look, this wasn't all action either. There hasn't really been a bunch of like just all action for the whole time fights, but Ramon Tavares against Siri City, that was a good fight too, by the way. But I'm looking at more notable fights, to be honest. But Islam Makhachev against Poirier, the first round was not much. Islam took him down, held him down on the ground, beat him up there. But back and forth action in round 2, 3, 4. Poirier started kind of rising in the fight. Like, people started being like, damn, he could actually win this. He's looking good. Started stuffing takedowns. Every time he stuffed a takedown, crowd went crazy. And then ended in the finish, of course. This was a crazy fight. This is one that everyone's going to go back and rewatch. It's not some Robbie Lawler, Carlos Condit, or Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald type of situation, but it's still a very good fight. And also, people that say it's Gaethje Holloway, that fight was not that good for a lot of it. There was just the crazy moment at the end. Let's move on, though, to the next category. Next up, we've got the card of the year. This one's a given. We all know the winner. But some nominations. UFC 298, Volkanovski against Topuria. The main card was pretty solid. Had some good finishes on the prelims. 299 was a banger. Great card. Would have probably been the winner if not for 300, of course. Obviously, UFC 300, it's the winner. We don't care. We know it's the winner. UFC 301 in Brazil, not the most stacked card name value-wise, but it was very fun, competitive main event. Fun moment in the co-main with Aldo winning, and then a bunch of other finishes on that card. And then also, giving some love to a fight night, UFC Fight Night Lewis vs. Nascimento in St. Louis was a great card. Bunch of finishes. Apart from like the Rebellis and Waldo fight, there wasn't too many boring moments on there. The Woodson and Caceres fight wasn't great, but like, what's it called? Chase Hooper beating Borshev was fun as hell. Diego Ferreira against Rebecca was fun. Olberg KO'd Menafield in 10 seconds. The main event had a fun KO. Bunch of cool shit. Buckley was good until he got on the mic. But McKinney got head kick KO'd as well. This card was really fun, but the winner is, of course, UFC 300. Just top to bottom. Figgy beating Garbrandt. Miller getting beat up by Green. There was Moicano against Turner. Crazy comeback there. Lopez against Yusuf. Kayla Harrison actually was pretty fun. Aljo was whatever. Yuri vs. Rakic was fun. Bo Nickel looked a bit shit. Oliveira against Arman. Gaethje against Holloway. Weili against Janan, Pereira against Hill. That card was crazy stacked, crazy fun. Obviously the card of the year. If somehow, nothing's going to overtake it. But if somehow, even if it's like no one's going to overtake it just because of like the name value and the stacked wise, like how stacked it was. But if something even comes close to how entertaining of a watch this is, then we're in for a good year, boys. But let's move on to the next category. We're looking forward to the rest of this year, and we've got nominations for the most anticipated fight. These are the fights that the fans are most looking forward to, the fights that I'm most looking forward to be honest. So the nominations: Israel Adesanya, Dricus du Plessis, the battle for Africa. We've got Corey Sandhagen against Umar Nurmagomedov. Not a title fight, but probably the most anticipated non-title fight of the year that I can think of. Islam Makhachev against Arman Suki, and 2, assuming it happens, if Arman is not suspended for that time. O'Malley against Merab, and then obviously Holloway against Topuria. No, I am not looking forward to John Jones versus Stipe Dana White. No, John Jones is not the pound-for-pound number 1. I will not hear you yapping in the comments. Dana White watches my videos, by the way. The winner, in my opinion, is Holloway versus Topuria. Some other nominations like Leon Bilal, Blades and Aspinall, both good fights. There's some other good fights on the Abu Dhabi fight night too. But yeah, we're looking at title fights for the most part, and Holloway versus Topuria is that. It is the most anticipated fight, in my opinion, the most competitive maybe. Look, Adesanya du Plessis is really competitive. That's interesting. We're looking forward to that a lot. That's a close second probably. Then I would say, what's third? I don't know what's third. Who cares? But yeah, O'Malley, Merab, I'd say is also a good shout. But Holloway Topuria, we need to see this fight. But that is the video done, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I still am a bit sick. You can probably hear it in my voice. I sound a little bit roasty, a little bit retarded. But like, subscribe, leave a comment on your picks. Let me know if you agree with my nominations. What did I miss too? If you agree with the winners as well. Also, follow my Instagram, Left Lane MMA. We've got more videos coming soon. We've been back after a week off. I've got a UFC fighter inactivity/activity tier list coming soon too. I did like who's the most active, who's the least active fighter in the UFC. That's going to be a good video. Also got a star power tier list on coming soon. I've recorded that one. So more videos coming soon. Yeah, peace out, guys.